Do you have an idea for a startup that's been rattling in your brain for quite some time? Do you have problems explaining it to people? When you explain it, do they just don't get it? Or maybe you feel you have an idea, but it's not quite there yet. Hello, my name is Daniel Hindi, and today I'm going to give you 6 tips on how to best develop your idea. I've been in technology for over 2 decades. I have over 5 successful startups under my belt. You can imagine when I go to a dinner party, what conversations are like. Somebody after a few drinks always walks up to me and says, you know what, I have a great idea I want to share with you. So for the next 30 to 60 minutes, I'm entertaining this person about how great their idea is, not really that unique, and how thought through it is, really not that thought through, and how I should do all the work, they can come up with all the ideas and we'll go 50-50 on it. Dinner parties for me can sometimes be a drag. So how do you develop your idea? This is an age-old question that's been addressed in many different schools of thought, many different speakers. Even Stanford has their NABC method to vet out your idea. Today, I'm going to give you my 6 tips from the way I see them, specifically catered to technology companies and potentially raising money for your startup. So tip number 1. Make sure that you can properly articulate the problem you're trying to solve and the opportunity at hand. What is the need that the market is looking for? Is there an existing need or are you creating a new need? Addressing an existing need splits up into 2 categories. Needs that others have and needs that you have. If you don't feel the need yourself, your product may suffer a little bit because the information you receive is always one step removed. The other side is creating new demand and a new need for it. Now, this is extremely difficult, but extremely profitable. Think smartphones. For those of you old enough, probably not many of you, there was a day where we didn't have smartphones and we were all fine. We operated just fine. Life continued, no problem whatsoever. However, I dare you, put your smartphone down and walk to the end of the block. Let me see what happens to you. You start getting anxious. Your addiction to your phone kicks in and your anxiety says, I need to be around my phone. This need didn't exist prior to the invention of the smartphone. However, once it was created, now the need has been established and the addiction has begun. So if your product creates a need, this is extremely profitable, but extremely risky. You also want to address whether this is a must-have or a like-to-have to your customers. Is it a luxury item that they could do without, or is this something critical to their life or business that they can't live without? Because the loyalty of your customers will differ based on if it's a must-have or a like-to-have. Before we continue, make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest content. The second tip is make sure you can properly articulate your competitive advantage. If you're entering into a market that has competitors, why should I, the consumer, pick you over your competitors? There must be some differentiator. If your business is just a me too business, which basically means they have it, oh, me too. They have it, oh, me too. You're not different. You need to be different enough so that you can stand out and people choose you over your competitors. You need a strategy on how you're going to beat your competitors. You want to play to win. By the way, a name of a great book you should read. And you need to create a strategy on how you're going to gain ground on your competitors because they've been in the market for X months or years before you. So you have a lot of ground to cover just to catch up to them and then beat them. The third tip is if you don't have competitors and you are creating something new, the question is it defendable? Does your product have intellectual property that you can patent to defend against other competitors? In software, this is extremely easy to obtain and extremely difficult to defend. This is a common question I get from all my clients. I'm sure I'll have a video about this on its own. I get asked all the time with software, can I patent this? And the answer is yes. The real question is, can I defend it? And the truth of the matter is, you probably can't. All they need to do is change 20% of your patent and it's considered a different software. So if you're in electrical engineering, if you have a utility patent, things like that are easier to defend. Dealing with software, intellectual property is extremely hard to defend. Think of the electric scooters that we see in all major cities right now. It's a really good idea. It's out there. However, it's very difficult to defend. Within months, you had 3, 4 other competitors come and join the party. That is a good idea that's very hard to defend. Tip number 4, you need a very specific go-to market strategy. What do I mean by that? When you develop your product, when you develop your business and you're ready to launch, you're ready to open up your doors, you're ready to start taking subscriptions, how does the world know that you exist? How are you going to start gaining customers? Now, if you're a brick and mortar company, that could be through guerrilla marketing, just putting out leaflets and posters and buying local ads. Maybe you're in an area that has high traffic that people will just randomly see you, and that's fine. However, if your technology, this is where it becomes a little bit different. You may have the best idea that nobody's heard about. So you need a marketing strategy. You need to make sure you reserve some funds to make sure that you have some sort of digital marketing presence. You may want to consider offering a freemium model that allows people to try your product before they actually purchase. A lot of times, this is actually much cheaper than marketing. You still need marketing so people know that you have the free tier. So here's a thought experiment that's traditional to business that I want everybody's feedback on. Let's say you have a town that has 2 successful Italian restaurants in it. People in this town love eating Italian and they go to restaurant A and restaurant B. You want to open up a brand new restaurant. Do you open up an Italian restaurant in this town or a different type of restaurant? One school of thought says, you know for a fact people in this town like Italian food, so as long as you could do a better job, you will succeed. The other school of thought says this town is saturated with Italian food, but obviously people go to restaurants. Let me open up a different type of restaurant. Now the question here is, who is correct? I want to read your comments below to see who has the best argument. Tip number 5, you need a very clear financial statement and forecast of how your company is going to operate when it's losing money in the beginning. Obviously, you spent all this money and you still don't have customers, to when you reach the black, so going from red to black, black is break even, to green where you're profitable. So if you don't know how that's going to be, if you don't know how far out that's going to be, you can't calculate how much you need in reserves, how much you need in funding, and whether you could survive that storm. So many businesses fail not because they're a bad idea. They just didn't calculate how long they need to stay in market to gather enough critical mass to become profitable. So they failed because they ran out of fuel. Now, if you're in technology, you hear a lot of companies operating at a loss at a massive scale until they become profitable. Think of Amazon. They didn't make money for the longest time until they dominated the entire market and then started making money. But also think of Twitter and LinkedIn. They lost money. Some of them are still losing money. You need to address these scenarios and what type of company are you going to be? And there's a different strategy from user adoption to profitability that needs to be played out on paper before you go live. And you need to have a plan A, B, and C. Explain how your company can scale. So if your company is relying on you and your skill set, guess what? You don't scale. There's only 24 hours in a day, and no matter what, you can't make that 25th hour. Do your costs decrease over time and volume? Do your costs plateau? Do your costs increase? Some business models are fundamentally flawed because they're assuming a fixed cost structure, which is not correct. At scale, you have different logistics. Sometimes one employee can wear multiple hats, but at scale, you need more employees. That means your costs are going up. If you're housing all your product locally in your office, that's fine until you scale and now you need a warehouse. So you need to make sure that you play out your business plan and how it works at scale. You also need to identify whether your product and company can cross demographics and markets to see if you saturate a particular market. Is there a lateral move to gain more customer adoption? Is your company versatile and resilient? Now, this is more of a long-term plan and strategy, but think of companies like Borders and Barnes & Noble. They've become obsolete. They had the opportunity to potentially go digital, but they were too little, too late efforts to be put in, so now they're the way of the dodo. Think of car alarm companies. The car alarm itself hasn't become obsolete, but since all the manufacturers bundle them into the vehicle themselves, You don't have to get an aftermarket alarm to add to your vehicle. So all those businesses that opened up and said, hey, get your car alarm at our shop are now obsolete because most cars just come with alarms. Think of accessories for iPhones and how specific the adapter is. Once iPhone changed their adapter, all your accessories, if you had a large warehouse with a lot of inventory, you just lost a lot of money. So the question is, when, not if, when something is going to hit your market, are you versatile enough? Do you have the foresight to be able to adjust and shift your strategy to adjust to an ever-evolving market? All these tips you want to put together and ask yourself seriously and be as truthful as possible, and maybe vet this out with some friends to make sure if there's anything that you've forgotten or missed or a perspective that you may not have. It's extremely important to adjust now so that your business sees success. Just because you find a hurdle doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Sometimes you just need to reshape and rethink your business strategy so that you find success. It's much cheaper now to make these adjustments than after you build your company. I hope this video equips you to better develop your ideas so that you can hit the market and be successful at everything you do.